In a quiet California town, a young mechanic named Jake spends his days fixing broken machines. But his heart is what truly repairs lives. One foggy morning he meets Emily, a girl in a wheelchair stranded on the roadside. What begins as a simple act of kindness soon turns into a story that will change both their lives forever. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get started. It was a cold morning in California. The streets were still quiet, coated with the faint silver of dawn mist, and most of the town was just beginning to wake up. Jake, a 25-year-old mechanic, stood outside his small auto garage, wiping grease from his hands with a worn-out rag. His workshop was tiny, barely enough space for one car and a few scattered tools, but it was his dream, his pride, and the result of years of hard work. Despite his struggles, Jake never complained. He believed that kindness had a way of circling back, even if the world often seemed unfair. As he locked the side door and stretched his tired back, Jake noticed someone across the street. A young woman in a wheelchair was trying to adjust something near her leg. She looked about 21, her hair tied in a loose ponytail, her face pale from effort. The front wheel of her chair was bent sideways, stuck in a crack on the pavement. She tried to move it, but the more she struggled, the more frustrated she became. Jake hesitated for only a second before rushing over, his heavy work boots echoing on the sidewalk. "Hey, you okay there?" he asked softly, crouching beside her. The girl looked up, startled at first, then sighed with relief. "I think my wheel's jammed," she said, her voice gentle but tired, "and my leg brace slipped a little when I tried to fix it." Jake glanced at the chair, an older model, worn and scratched from use. He nodded, assessing the damage. "I can fix this," he said with quiet confidence. She blinked in surprise. "Really? I don't have money right now." But Jake interrupted her with a small smile. "Don't worry about that. Let's just get you moving again." He wheeled her closer to his workshop, careful not to jolt her leg. Inside, the smell of motor oil and metal filled the air, but it felt strangely safe. Emily, she told him her name as he worked, watched him intently. His hands moved quickly, steady and sure, tightening bolts, realigning the frame, and adjusting the brace on her leg with delicate precision. "You must do this a lot," she said softly. Jake chuckled. "Fixing things? Yeah, people. Not so much," she smiled faintly. "Well, today you're doing both." Her words made him pause for a second, but he said nothing, only kept working until everything was perfect again. When he finished, he rolled her chair forward. "Try it now," he said. Emily moved the wheels carefully. The chair glided smoothly. Her eyes lit up, a mixture of surprise and joy. "It's perfect," she exclaimed. "I don't even know how to thank you." Jake shook his head. "You just did." He stepped back, brushing dust from his jeans, trying to hide the smile tugging at his lips. She hesitated, looking around his small garage. The rusty sign, the broken coffee maker, the faded calendar on the wall. It was obvious he wasn't well off, yet he had helped her without hesitation. That kindness struck something deep inside her. She reached into her small purse, pulling out a few crumpled bills. "Please," she said, "take this. You earned it." Jake lifted his hand, refusing the money. "No need. My little sister used to have leg issues. Helping you feels like helping her again." Emily froze, her lips parting slightly. "Your sister?" she asked softly. Jake nodded, his voice lowering. "Yeah, she passed away a few years ago. She was 17. Got into a car accident. That's when I started fixing wheelchairs too. Figured maybe I could help someone else walk or move again." The air fell silent for a moment. Thick with emotion neither of them expected, Emily looked at him, her eyes glistening. She hadn't told him, but she knew that pain. She too had lost someone once, and since then life had felt cold and distant. People had helped her only because of her family's name and money, never out of pure kindness. But this man, this stranger covered in grease and sweat, had done something different. He had seen her. Not her disability, not her wealth, not her weakness. Just her. "You're a good man, Jake," she said quietly. He shrugged, trying to downplay it. "Just doing what anyone should." As she sat there, she couldn't help but observe him more closely. His hands were rough, his nails stained with oil, but his eyes were gentle, full of patience. The small shop around them looked like it had seen better days. Old posters on the walls, a cracked radio playing soft country music, but it was filled with sincerity. Jake offered her a bottle of water before gently adjusting the footrest on her chair. "There you go," he said. "Good as new." Emily took a sip, smiling for the first time in weeks. "You really didn't have to," she said again. Jake just nodded. "I know, but I wanted to." When she finally rolled out of his garage, the sun had climbed higher in the sky, washing the street in gold. Jake watched her go until she disappeared around the corner. Something about her lingered with him, her quiet strength, her sadness, the way she thanked him like it meant the world. He didn't know who she was or where she was going, but he hoped she'd be okay. Life had a way of bringing people together for reasons unseen. Maybe this was one of them. He sighed, turned back to his tools, and got ready for another long day of repairs. That night, as Jake locked up again, he sat outside his shop for a while, looking at the stars. The sound of distant traffic filled the air, but he barely noticed. He thought about Emily and how easily people pass by each other every day, how one small act of kindness could change everything. He didn't do it for reward or attention. He did it because that's what his sister would have wanted. Somewhere deep inside, he felt lighter, as if helping her had healed a part of himself too. Meanwhile, Emily returned home, her repaired chair moving smoothly across her marble floors. Her house was large, elegant, and silent. Too silent. She parked by the window and looked outside, thinking of Jake. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. She thought of the way he smiled without expecting anything, of the sincerity in his eyes. People like him still exist, she whispered to herself. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying their brief encounter in her mind, wondering what kind of life he lived, how he managed to stay so humble and kind, despite having so little. In the days that followed, she found herself thinking of him often. She even passed by his workshop once, though she didn't stop. Jake didn't see her. He was busy fixing a truck, his sleeves rolled up, focused as ever. She smiled quietly and left, deciding that someday she'd find a way to return the kindness he had given her. She didn't know how yet, but she knew one thing for sure: he had changed something in her heart. A full month passed since Jake had last seen Emily. The days blurred together. Early mornings, greasy hands, and long nights in the same little workshop. His life hadn't changed much, except that every now and then, when he glanced toward the road, he remembered the girl in the wheelchair and the soft gratitude in her eyes. It was strange, he thought, how someone could appear for a few moments and still stay in your thoughts like a whisper that never fades. But he brushed it aside. Life was busy and rent was due soon. He couldn't afford to dream. That morning, the sun was already high when Jake opened the garage door. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and warm dust. He wiped sweat from his forehead as he leaned over an old pickup truck that refused to start. The radio hummed faintly in the background, playing an old country love song. He muttered to himself, tightening bolts and hoping this customer wouldn't delay payment. He needed every dollar just to keep the lights on. Money had always been tight, but Jake had learned to survive on hope, hard work, and a quiet kind of faith. Around noon, he heard the deep hum of an engine approaching, not the kind of sound that belonged in his poor part of town. He straightened up, squinting through the sunlight. A long black limousine rolled to a stop in front of his garage. The sleek body and tinted windows looked completely out of place among the old cars and dusty storefronts. Jake frowned, wiping his hands on a rag, wondering if they were lost. Then the back door opened, and a pair of men in suits stepped out, tall and expressionless. His heart skipped. "Can I help you?" he asked cautiously. Before either man could speak, another voice answered from inside the car. "You already did." Jake froze. The sound was soft but familiar. Then she appeared. Emily, only she didn't look like the same fragile girl he'd helped weeks ago. She wore a pale blue dress, her long hair flowing freely, her posture graceful as she moved with her new, sleek wheelchair. There was confidence in her smile now, but her eyes were still kind, the same eyes he remembered. For a moment, Jake couldn't find his voice. "You," "You're that girl from the roadside," he finally said, stepping forward. Emily smiled, her gaze warm. "Yes, Jake, and I've been looking for you." He blinked, still trying to process the sight of her arriving in a limousine, surrounded by people who looked like they belonged to another world entirely. "Looking for me? Why?" he asked, genuinely puzzled. Emily looked around the small garage. The peeling paint, the flickering bulb above the entrance, the half-broken tools scattered on the floor. Her smile softened. "Because you repaired more than my leg that day. You repaired something in me that I thought was gone." Jake tilted his head, confused. "I just fixed your chair," he said quietly. "That's all." "No," she said firmly, shaking her head. "You didn't just fix my chair. You didn't ask who I was or what I had or what I could give you. You helped me like it was the most natural thing in the world. People don't do that anymore." She paused, her voice trembling slightly. "After my parents died, I stopped believing that kindness was real. Everyone around me wanted something, money, power, attention. But you just wanted to help." Jake shifted uncomfortably, not used to such praise. "Anyone would have done the same," he murmured. Emily smiled sadly. "No, Jake, not everyone would." For a moment they stood in silence, the hum of the city faint in the background. Jake still couldn't understand why she'd gone through all this trouble just to see him. Then she reached into her purse and handed him a white envelope. "What's this?" he asked, turning it over. "A thank you," she replied. Jake frowned, already uneasy. "I told you before, I don't want your money." Emily shook her head. "It's not money. Just open it." Slowly, Jake tore the seal and unfolded the papers inside. His breath caught as he scanned the first line. It was a property deed. He looked up, stunned. "What is this?" Emily smiled gently. "It's your new workshop. Fully equipped, paid for." "It's yours." Jake took a step back, shaking his head in disbelief. No, this can't be real," he said quickly. "I can't accept this. I just helped you. That doesn't mean you owe me anything." Emily's voice softened even more. "You don't understand, Jake. You gave me something I couldn't buy with all the money in the world, hope. You reminded me that not everyone is cruel. This isn't repayment. It's gratitude." Jake's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. The men in suits quietly set a folder on his workbench, filled with documents and keys. Jake stared at them like they were part of a dream. "Emily, I don't deserve this," he whispered. "I'm just a mechanic." She wheeled closer, looking straight into his eyes. "You're not just anything. You're someone who saw a person in pain and helped them without expecting anything back. That makes you rare, Jake. That makes you worthy." Her words carried a weight he couldn't ignore. He swallowed hard, emotion rising in his chest. "You really didn't have to do this," he murmured again. "I know," she said softly. "But I wanted to." There was sincerity in her tone that left no room for argument. For a long moment, Jake simply stood there, staring at the documents in his hands. The hum of the limousine engine faded into the background. Everything around him seemed to blur, and all he could see was the kindness shining in her eyes. She was no longer just the girl in the broken wheelchair. She was someone who had found strength through compassion. And now she was giving that compassion back in the only way she knew how. Finally, Jake let out a shaky breath. "You've already done more than enough," he said quietly. Emily smiled faintly. "Then let's call it even." She extended her hand. He hesitated, then took it gently. Her grip was warm, steady, and full of unspoken understanding. "Thank you," she whispered. Jake shook his head. "No, thank you. You reminded me why I do what I do." For the first time in a long while, his heart felt light. Maybe this was what his sister had meant when she used to say that kindness always comes back around, just not always in the way we expect. As the limousine pulled away, Jake stood outside his shop, still holding the envelope. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. He watched until the car disappeared down the road, a faint smile playing on his lips. The papers in his hand felt heavy, but not because of their value, because of what they represented. Compassion, hope, second chances. He looked at the old sign above his garage and laughed softly to himself. "Guess we're getting an upgrade, sis," he whispered, glancing at the sky. That night he couldn't sleep. The sound of the limousine's engine still echoed in his mind. He sat by the window, looking out at the quiet street where his life had just changed forever. Not because of money or property or luck, but because of one simple truth: kindness matters. Somewhere across town, Emily was doing the same, staring out her window, thinking of the mechanic who had reminded her what it felt like to be seen, to be human, to be cared for. Two lives had crossed for only a few hours, yet both were changed beyond measure. Days turned into weeks after Emily's visit. Yet Jake still couldn't fully believe what had happened. Every morning, he drove to the new workshop she'd gifted him, a spacious, modern garage with bright lights, new tools, and a clean concrete floor that didn't creak under his boots. For a man who'd spent years working with second-hand wrenches and broken lifts, it felt unreal. He kept thinking it was temporary, that someone would show up and tell him there had been a mistake. But no one came. The deed had his name on it, and Emily's promise was real. He spent his first week there in quiet disbelief, working longer hours than ever before. The space smelled new, the air cleaner, the light brighter. Customers began to pour in, impressed by the quality of his work and the friendly warmth he offered. Jake never told them about the woman who made it possible. He didn't want recognition. He just wanted to earn it, to honor the kindness that had changed his life. Yet deep down, he hoped he would see her again, even if just once, to tell her how much it meant. Emily, meanwhile, had been following his progress quietly. Through one of her assistants, she'd learned that Jake had refused to hire extra workers at first, preferring to do everything himself. It was just like him, humble, hard-working, independent. She admired that about him. But more than that, she felt something deeper, something she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just gratitude anymore, it was connection. A bond born not of pity or debt, but of two people who understood the quiet power of kindness in a world that often forgot it existed. One Saturday morning, when the sun rose soft and golden over the California hills, Jake heard the familiar sound of a car engine outside. He turned off his wrench, wiped his hands, and stepped out into the sunlight. The limousine was there again, shining black against the road. His heart skipped. This time Emily was alone. She wheeled herself out gracefully, a small smile lighting up her face. "Looks like business is booming," she said, glancing around the busy lot. Jake grinned. "Yeah, guess people trust a guy who doesn't overcharge," he joked. "Though I owe that to you." Emily looked at him gently. "You don't owe me anything, Jake. You earned every bit of this." He shook his head. "Maybe, but I wouldn't be here without you." She rolled closer, her expression softening. "And I wouldn't be here without you," she replied. The words hung between them for a moment, simple, yet heavy with meaning. They moved inside, sitting near his new workstation. The smell of oil mixed with fresh paint lingered in the air, grounding them both in a moment that felt almost sacred. "So," she asked quietly, "how does it feel to have your dream finally come true?" Jake took a deep breath. "It feels strange, like I'm finally living a life I never thought I could. But it's not about the place or the money. It's about what it means. You gave me a chance to believe that good things can still happen to good people." Emily smiled. "That's exactly how I felt when you helped me that day." She looked down at her hands, then added softly, "When I lost my parents, I lost my purpose. Their company, their wealth, it didn't matter. Everyone wanted something from me. No one just cared." Her voice trembled as she continued. "When my wheelchair broke that morning, I thought it was just another bad day. But then you showed up, covered in grease, tired, probably late for something, and you didn't hesitate. You just helped. And for the first time in years, I felt human again." Jake listened silently, his chest tight with emotion. "I didn't do anything special," he said finally. "You did," she insisted. "Because kindness, Jake, is rare. You fixed my leg brace, but you also fixed something I thought was permanently broken, my trust in people." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, the sound of cars passing by filled the silence. Then Jake leaned back, exhaling slowly. "You know," he said quietly, "my sister used to tell me the same thing, that one small act of kindness can heal more than we realize. I never understood it fully until I met you." Emily smiled, her eyes glistening. Your sister must have been special, Jake nodded. She was. She believed the world could change if people just cared a little more. Emily reached out and gently touched his hand. She was right, she whispered. As the afternoon sun drifted through the windows, Jake showed her around the shop, the new tools, the lifts, the clean workspace. She was genuinely excited, her laughter light and warm. For a moment, it felt as if they'd known each other for years. At one point, she found a small framed photo on his desk, a picture of his sister. "She looks kind," Emily said softly. Jake nodded, smiling faintly. "She'd have liked you." Emily looked up. "And she'd be proud of you." Her words made his throat tighten. He looked away, blinking back tears he didn't want to show. When evening came, Emily handed him a small box wrapped neatly in silver paper. "What's this?" Jake asked. "Another gift?" She smiled. "Something small, I promise." He opened it carefully. Inside was a golden keychain shaped like a heart, engraved with the words, "Kindness changes everything." For a moment, he couldn't speak. "Emily, this means more than you know," he said quietly. She looked at him, her eyes soft but serious. "Keep it. And whenever life feels heavy, just remember, what you did for me changed both our lives." Jake nodded slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I won't forget." As she prepared to leave, Jake walked her to the car. The sun was setting again, painting the horizon in pink and orange. Emily turned to him before getting in. "Jake, can I tell you something?" she asked. "Of course." She took a deep breath. "You didn't just fix my life. You reminded me who I was before money, before fame, before loss. You made me want to help others again." Jake smiled softly. "Then I guess we're even," she laughed gently. "No, we're connected. And maybe that's better than even," he nodded. "Yeah, maybe it is." The limousine door closed and she waved as the car drove away, disappearing into the glow of the setting sun. Jake stood there for a long time, the cool breeze brushing his face, the golden keychain glinting in his hand. He looked up at the sky, thinking of his sister, thinking of Emily, and whispering a quiet thank you. To fate, to kindness, to the strange way the universe brings two souls together at exactly the right time. Inside the garage, the lights flickered softly, illuminating the name painted on the new wall. Hope Motors, by Jake. That night, Jake sat outside his shop, the stars glowing above him. He felt something he hadn't in years, a deep, peaceful joy. Life hadn't just given him a new beginning, it had given him a purpose. Somewhere out there, Emily was smiling too, knowing that her act of gratitude had created more than success, it had created hope. And so, in a quiet town in California, two hearts carried the same belief, that one act of kindness, however small, could truly change everything.